Hello and welcome to CQtober 2024. We're on our second seam today. I've got our bowl with our stitches in it. I have it tilted away from me so I can't really see what's going on in it. Closing my eyes and picking one. There we go. What do we have today? So Cretan stitch. And that's another favorite of mine. Where are we going to do that? We talked about working out from this. And as I'm looking at this, I don't really want to stitch against the same exact fabrics I did yesterday. I'd kind of like to move around a little bit, but if I stay in the center, I'm definitely working off of that piece. Let's see, shall I work here? And so the nice thing about Cretan stitch is it goes sideways quite a bit. And that's going to be good because this is a solid piece here, and I'm realizing it needs a little lint rolling. Neaten that up a little bit, make it easier. Let's do this one. Now, do I want to go all the way along this seam here? And I think I do. I think that's a good spot to go along it. So now we need to decide what kind of color. Now, I don't want to use the same central one that I used over here. I actually am looking at this wondering if a green might be good. And I have this green, and I have a couple of extras as well. This is what we used for the leaves over here the other day. So again, I don't necessarily want to do the same one. I like this one. Let's do that one. Cretan is one of those stitches that for me I tend to move around quite a bit. I always have to stop and think with Cretan. How do I want to begin? So I've got my thread in, and this one I want the zigs and zags to be on the center of the seam. And so I put a little catch stitch in. It's a little bit off, but that's fine. And we're going to come up over this other one. I wish I knew how to do this without turning it all the time, but that's just the way I stitch. So this first couple of stitches sets the size for the whole seam. So I'm about roughly 1/2 inch apart. And so I want to make sure I'm about that here as well. Need my thimble. Checking, going over. That one's a little big. My gosh, Lisa, I'm having a hard time today. I need to start over today, I think. Let me just pull that out and restitch that one, because I'm not happy with that. And I think part of the issue is we're dealing with a curve here, and so that throws me off a little bit. If you have to, you mark it. I'm not going to mark it. I just don't like marking if I can help it. But I want my legs to be relatively perpendicular to the seam, wherever that happens to be. I think now we're getting the rhythm of it. A little better. That last one was a little big, so I'll go a little short on that side. Twisted thread there. And now we're kind of running into the other seam that I had done. I don't mind it overlapping a little bit. I try and continue the pattern to the best that I can. And it actually just laid out nicely here, so most of it's going to go right around it. That finer thread just gets buried in that deep corduroy. So I need to not pull it quite so tight so that it can sit on top. It seems like these are fun because you just never know quite what you're going to get. And I think we're going to end it there. Actually going to come down in the corduroy there just to tighten that corner down. But that's really the end of that seam. So that main stitch, I mean, it doesn't take terribly long to stitch that. So there we have it going across there. So now what do we want to do? Let's look back at our list of extras to be adding. We've got French knots, lazy daisies, pistol stitch, straight stitch, and twisted lazy daisy. And again, singles, pairs, triads, or groups of 5. All of those things would work. I've got 2 plain fabrics here next to one another. If I wanted to come off and do something in here, I could do something different on each side. So what do we want to do? And then remember, I want this to really have no direction. I want you to be able to look at it from any side and it's still upright. You know, it's not going to matter. I'm sort of thinking about doing some little buttonhole leaves off of here, and then maybe pairs of lazy daisies on this side. If I do pairs of lazy daisies on this side, I want it to be something that's got some good variegation in it. We've got that one that picks up some of the red, and that might be kind of fun here. And that's the size 8, so it will show up a little bit better. But then what do we want to do here for those buttonhole leaves? This is where I always hang up on stuff. For me, choosing threads is often the hardest part. Now we have this gold one. Oh, look at that. That's really pretty on there. Now this is one of those colors that it really doesn't show up a lot in this piece. You know, there's a little bit of gold here, there's a little bit over here. It alludes to gold without being gold. Let's use that one. So I think we're going to do this one on this side and this one. Let's change that and look. This shows up better over here. Okay, well let's do that. We need my bigger needle. Both of these are the size 8 threads. I'm guessing it's a size 5 needle. So this should be pretty straightforward. Simple lazy daisy pairs on one side, and we'll save the fancy buttonhole leaves for last. Lazy daisies, it doesn't matter which side you start on. I'm right on the edge here of that fabric, so I'm going to do one coming off into that fabric, allowing for the seam that comes down. Oh, and I kind of like that. I did a little longer end off of that. I like that. I think I'm going to continue that. And again, I'm not going to worry about making these all exactly identical, coming off at exactly the same angles. We're going to allow for some variation, just like nature has. Oh my gosh, what are we doing here, Lisa? There we go. And if I get to a seam that I feel like it doesn't need to have 3 elements on it, we won't do 3. We'll just do 1 element. Or maybe we'll find one that we say, hey, I like just the plain stitch best, and that's what we'll do. Periodically, as you move along, I got to move my hands. This one runs right into that other seam, and there's not room to do the pair. So I'm just going to do 1 coming off, I think. Well, maybe we can. Let's tuck a pair in there. Let's just go ahead and toss in another one. I'm really liking that. That gold went really well against that. I'm finding it fun to be stitching with not having to make up the decision on the spot, because pulling the stitch out of the bowl makes my decision for me. It sort of minimizes my decision making, and that's kind of fun. I've done that when I've been doing sketch challenges as well, and it's always nice to have somebody else decide what you're going to be drawing that day, so I don't have to think about that. I've got my thread all twisted here. We're almost to the end of our thread, but thankfully we're also almost at the end of our seam, so I think we're going to barely make it. Let's hope. I hate having to rethread the needle to make 1 or 2 more stitches. Hope I haven't been stitching off camera here. There, we made it. We finished that one off, so let me knot that on the back. I even have enough length of thread to knot my thread, which is almost miraculous. That just happens so seldom. Usually fighting making that last knot. All right, let's see where we're at. I'm really happy with that. Oh my gosh. We could keep it really simple and just do more of that thread on this side and just do another row of lazy daisies. I'm kind of liking that idea rather than adding something different out here, because I really am liking that gold. Decisions, folks. That's the hardest part of this whole thing, making decisions. Well, I know I said I wanted to keep this project simple. And I think we're going to use the same, we're just going to do the same thing on the other side. There we go. I'm pretty happy with that seam. I thought I had the camera turned on, and I did not. But I just decided to stitch this other side going with the same pattern of lazy daisies rather than doing the buttonhole stitch. I'm really happy with how it looks. That gold just pops off of there, and that's what I was wanting. I want to see the velveteens, but I wanted to see the stitching, and I didn't want to get too complicated. I wanted to keep these relatively simple seams. So there we have, it's just a Cretan stitch and pairs of lazy daisies with long tails on them. And I'm really happy with it. Thank you so much for being here with me today as I stitched seam 2 on our CQtober project. Happy stitching, and I'll see you tomorrow with stitch 3.